I bet y'all wonder like, what's that P&D Party Next Door? It's a little mix I play on YouTube. Pretty dope. Just fuck with my ego. Just fuck with my ego. Not enough. I be that shit hard. Just got me thinking about why I do drugs, why I smoke reefer, why I drink, why I be intoxicated, why I be running to these things, which isn't really any relief, any sense of peace. I caught this nervous condition a couple years ago. I'm not sure when it was, like 22, I believe. COVID hit or whatever. Was locked up during 3 months, and towards the end, COVID got out of control, so they put us all on lockdown. People coming in sick, and that was the first real um, situation or instance where I really believe COVID was a thing. I've heard stories before this point, but now in jail, I'm like, whatever, right? I didn't think about it too much because it's everything locked down, the government shut down, and all of this chaos going on. Besides the chaos that I'm creating on my own, people was coming in sick, half dead. Like even in the dorm we was in, like 40 guys, two of them got sick, and they was like, they couldn't eat, they couldn't talk. They was giving us the vaccine shots in there. Some people was getting Johnson and Johnson. I didn't take it then because I was like, one shot and done don't sound right. But anyway, whatever, right? I didn't take the shot in jail. They was giving it, but it did cross my mind like, damn, they fucked up. And I do curse, so if you don't like that, then you could kick rocks. Try to tell me how to express myself. This is how I do it, and I'm working on that. I'm imperfect, perfectly imperfect individual. But anyway, when we was doing it, we had 14 days lockdown, and it was like after this we might extend days, but on that 14th day I was to be released. After it was like my 90 day. Um, During them 14 days, I noticed like I'd be sitting out in the day room or wherever. When we get out of our cell, me and my cellie, it was like they'll go through the dorms, let us all out for 1 hour of the day, and the last hour we all be locked down because it was like that's how the clock worked, that's how the rooms work. And 1 hour of the clock, everybody get 1 hour out type shit. So sometimes my celly will come out, sometimes he won't, but we ain't have enough time to do a lot. We'll hop on the phone, take a shower, and probably like like you take a shower, that's probably like 20, 30 minutes. Plus, you got the whole thing to yourself. So it's like, shit, you're going to take your time. You might take a 30 minute, then go chill for the next 30. That's what we'd do when we was on lockdown. But when it's not like that, you got to be in and out, whatever, right? Because it was only like one shower for 40 guys to share. And we had to one in, one out. So, like you basically taking turns. And then we had a few cell phones, not cell phones, but phones where you could call family, friends, or anybody that you talk to or whatever, right? During those 14 days, maybe a little bit before then, I noticed myself sitting at the table with my legs just shaking because I was thinking about, well, at this point in time, I knew I had went to jail with a warrant. I got sentenced, no, December. So this must have been the early 23 or early 22, but I got sentenced December 22nd of 21 or 22 for a drug case. And then as soon as I got sentenced that January, the 3rd, I believe, I caught a new case and was locked up for that. So this is where I'm doing the 90 days where I caught this nervous condition where my legs just get to shaking, shaking, shaking. And that's when I noticed that this is something that I had no control over. Something that, I just picked up from this stress, high stressful situation. Anyway, I was thinking like, soon as those doors open, they're going to close again because they're going to come pick me up like they did before and take me back to Michigan. I was locked up in Illinois, and my warrant was extraditable because this happened before. Took me from Illinois back to Michigan. Get back to Illinois, catch a new case, do the time, but I still got to deal with Michigan. So that's what I was worried about. Like maybe people like you finna go home, you good. I'm like maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm finna go finish my time for this other case. And they ran them concurrent. I had 2 years probation for both. and they ran them together. But anyway, after those 14 days of lockdown, and I was finally being freed, they told me at the desk, they was like, you got an open warrant, right? I was like, damn. They was like, they not coming to get you tonight though. So if I was you, I'd just be careful across them lakes. So I'm like, all right. Then I'm like, damn, I knew this information, but I didn't share it with anybody because it was like people happy you finna come home, but they don't know that you still have a situation over your head. Some people knew this, not as far as family and friends, but people that I was incarcerated with. They knew that it was like, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that at some point. Some people was like, you might not go home. A lot of people believed that I was, which I did, but I just didn't know because I was in trouble, dealing with trouble, but in more trouble. And it's easy to get in trouble, very easy. What's not easy is dealing with consequences and readjusting your life. You have to pick up the pieces and start over again. And sometimes that start over isn't as simple, isn't easy, it isn't what you expect it to be, but it's necessary nevertheless. Changes are inevitable, meaning bound to happen no matter what. It's the only thing that's consistent in this world is change. And once you get comfortable with things and you realize that this is something you may want for life, this the same moment you set yourself up for failure because nothing lasts forever. Not even the peace of mind that you obtain from time to time throughout the day, even the happiness that you reach from time to time throughout the day is a constant pursuit. In my pursuit of happiness, I like to read from my book of inspiration, a piece of inspiration for every day of the year, written by Sarah Young. It's a book called Jesus Calling, Enjoying Peace in His Presence. I remember a lot of times committing sins and just being of the world. I ignored Jesus calling a lot. One time I was in trouble with a friend and we were running from the police. Not sure we finna get caught or whatever, but in that moment I was like, I don't recall exactly what I said, but it was something about we not gonna get blessed if we keep up this mess and we live this lifestyle. God's gonna frown upon us and not bless us. He was like, what you mean bless us? I'm not even blessed right now. He's like, shit. Basically, he denounced God at that moment. He was like, God ain't been blessing me, so I'm out here now. Like, shit, what the fuck? He's like, I'm making my own blessings. And he sort of wasn't wrong. I really didn't have much rebuttal at that point because it's like, I'm right along with you, creating my own blessings as well. So, it was kind of contradictory for me to say that. But at the end of the day, it was necessary because Jesus was still speaking to me, trying to clean up my mess, try to guide me in the right direction. And at that moment, I was trying to help save my friends as well because we're all heading in the wrong direction. But when Jesus calling, not everybody answers his calling. And sometimes they don't end up calling back until they're in dire need, whether sick, shut in a hospital, or incarcerated. And or other things. When we call on Christ, it's not because he's calling on us, it's because we need him. But nevertheless, this is the reading for today of October the 23rd, 2025. As you turn your attention to me, feel the light of my presence shining upon you. Open your mind and heart to receive my heavenly smile of approval. Let my gold team love wash over you as you soak in the depths of your being. Let my gold team love wash over you and soak into the depths of your being. As you are increasingly filled with my being, you experience joyous union with me. I in you, and you in me. Your joy in me and my joy in you become intertwined and inseparable. I suffuse your soul with joy in my presence. At my right hand there are pleasures forevermore. At my right hand there are pleasures forevermore. And this was a time I was getting a little closer to God too, all the time. I never really denounced Christ. I have been angry with God, just like a lot of other people. I've tried other things. I realized that God wasn't in those things. It wasn't the right way to go. But nevertheless, you become spiritually contaminated and compromised. Trying these different religions, trying these different practices, you open the door to a spiritual world that you really don't really want to invite in. Start having different demons approach, different spiritual attacks. Um, it get real scary. It get real ugly. And there is power in the name of Christ when you call on Jesus to save you. Especially when I was having those night terrors. Be careful who you let pray for you too. I know a lot of people go to church, but not every pastor is a pastor of God that serves Jesus Christ. You don't know what these people do behind closed doors, and who they really truly worship, who they truly have faith in, who they truly believe. I was dealing with one prophet and doing little things. I'm thinking that I'm getting closer to God with this guy because he's a pastor, right? They have you doing little rituals that don't seem like, um, it don't seem harmful. It don't seem like nothing of Christ, right? But when you a baby in Christ and you don't have a relationship for yourself with Christ, anybody can tell you who Christ is from their point of view. And especially if this person is seemingly to be high favored, successful. Successful people seen as blessed, right? I mean, that's just what it seems like. Like you got everything that I want, you must be blessed. You must be. That's not always the case. But anyway, to make a long story short, this guy, I stopped dealing with him, and then right after that, I started having night terrors. Started seeing red eye demons, yellow eye demons. Um, my health was going through stuff, my friends, relationships, finances, just a lot of different attacks that I didn't think of because I was in the streets halfway anyway. So it's like maybe this is a part of that, or maybe this is just life. You young, living fast. A lot come with that lifestyle. Is it's dangerous, and that danger keeps you at a thrill. So you don't really think too much about if it's your actions or if it's the lack of spiritual protection. But anyway, this reading for today comes from the book of John, chapter 17, verse 20 through 23. And also, last but never the least, the book of Psalms, chapter 16, verse 11. As you turn your attention to me, feel the light of my presence. And I always feel God near. But one or two are in agreement. Mixed. I believe that's the scripture. I can pull it up really quick because I don't like quoting scriptures, because I could hear something that might not be right and just be going with that like a lot of people do. The Bible say this, the Bible say that. Okay, where at in the Bible? So I could look it up and check for myself. Um, Let me look this up real quick so I can show y'all. Yeah, I'm the type of person I like facts. I like truth. Shit sound good all the time, but whatever, right? And this what I'm talking about comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 18. I'll share my screen, and then we finna get into a conversation with the devil. This is pretty dope, pretty interesting. The conversation I've heard, but this one here is an interview with him. The first one I heard, it was I think it was a telephone. I don't remember how it was, but it's basically a book called Conversation with the Devil, and he sits there. He talks about how he works and basically who he is and what he's about, and that's pretty interesting. This conversation here is a more so face to face. The guy he's having a conversation with is a journalist. He's down on his luck. The devil's been calling him for about 60 some days. He answered the call on the 66th day because Satan, he called himself Samuel, which is his original name, he says. He says that was his last call and final call. He wasn't going to reach out to this journalist anymore to tell his story. So he was like, from midnight to noon, we're going to do this interview. I'll come today. I'll pay you 50,000 in Bitcoin. And yeah, I'll pay you for your time. Basically, you gotta take notes and don't interrupt unless you need clarification on anything that I'm saying. So that was the rules. And then when Samuel get there, aka the devil, he has plenty of names, but this is what he called himself. This is what he goes by. We're going to get into it very shortly. Um, right after I show you this Bible verse, anyway. But uh, he realized like, oh, this is a paper trail. So he just bring a suitcase, get him the money, the cash right there. He starts his ordeal. Um, Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. The Bible verse you are looking for is Matthew 18:20, which states, "For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them." And who am I? I am the great I am, Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I said that to say this, that I do my Bible studies with one person. As long as there's two of us, then Christ is there, you know. When we gather in his name, two or more are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst. So this part of the story, let me catch you up because if you haven't, so far what happened is, right, what he explaining is energy can't be destroyed nor created. Energy has always been there from the beginning of time. God was energy. He wasn't a form. He wasn't anything. And for there to be anything, you need to first have consciousness, right? So that's how God became the great I am. He was in a void. There was nothing. And he realized I am something. Now, to realize that, you have to have a visual or whatever, right? So then he created dimensions. He created mathematics. He created time, space, and all of this and all of that. And then he created the devil, Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call him. After he created, like, you know, space, time, all this and that, he created him, which was an angel, and he called him the light bearer. He was the light bearer. Then he created Archangel Michael, who had the sword. The sword. Then he created Gabriel. Then he created I forget the other angels' names, but Satan is an archangel, and he created thousands of those angels. All of them had their own purpose. And then he started having the angels create different universes, different galaxies, and whatever, right? They start creating as much as they can. And then what happened was God was like, I want to create man in my our image. And I want y'all to serve them. Satan says that he loves Jesus, he loves God so much that he'll do anything for God. And he was like, the only thing that he didn't like was that he didn't like that human beings should be placed as a worshiping idol or object or whatever, right? He didn't like the fact that God put us above them and that God told them to bow down to us. Majority of them did. The Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and a lot of them, right? They did. No problem, no hesitation. But Samuel, what he like to go by, he was like, um, what he do? He basically was like, I ain't with that. I'm not feeling that. And then they got into it. He was like, how can you not give us our own we don't have free will, right? And so that was the thing. The angels didn't have free will. They didn't know about good or evil. But Satan, he was like, we should have that too, just like the humans should have. And that's where the great division started. He was like, um, damn, I'm trying to remember. He was like, basically, I'm gonna give people choice. You know, God has one way of doing things, and that's that. Satan's whole purpose in life was to give you the other choice, to give you another option. And that was his design, from being the light bearer, which is still the light bearer because he opens the light to a different option. You know, whenever you have two choices, it's one from God and the devil showing you another way, right? And that's what his job is to do. And once they got into it, they fought for I don't know how long, but they fought through galaxies, they fought through time, they fought anywhere, everywhere except for on Earth because Earth wasn't created yet. So then when God separated them, basically he separated Satan from his presence, from his face. And so he was in another abyss. and he was like, "You can run that. You can control that. That's your area." Plus, with the people that went with him, which was a third of the host of the angels in heaven, they went with him. So that was his dominion to control. And he said, when I got down here or whatever, I realized that I have choice. I could do as I please. I could choose to do what I want. I have free will now, and that's what he was cool with. And then he saw God created the earth. He created man. He blew his breath, his likeness into man, and man was created. And then he was like, okay, God gave them instructions: do this, don't do that. But this is where the devil's this is where he come into play, because this is his job to do, to give men and women a different option. And he talks about this. He says he didn't lie to, well, basically he flipped it around. He said God lied to Adam and Eve about they would die instantly, which really they didn't die right away. They died over time spiritually. And he was like, I just gave them another option. And I told them that, and that's where the whole thing comes into play, where he basically says God is the evil one, because he was like, I seen him flood the earth. I seen him destroy people. I heard the babies crying. I seen mothers lifting up their kids so that either they drown first or the kid drown second or whatever, right? It sounded very horrible. It sounded like genocide. And this is what our God was doing, killing everybody because he was unsatisfied with his creation. And that's what the devil was saying, was like, you have a perfect creation because they're flawed. And I'm here to give them a choice, give them a chance to be unflawed, to help your creation become perfect. And that was his whole debate with God. And some people understood, some didn't. So that was why the third that went with him. Some were because they was just Lucifer's followers. He got a follower just like God got a follower. Some went because they went with his ideologies. They believe how he believed, and then some went just to see what would it be like to test God, to go on the other side. So that was the three that went. Some that just followed Satan because of who he is. Some believed in his ideology, and some just wanted to be curious enough to see what was going to happen if they joined his team. And he breaks all this down. Then he goes into saying that the rainbow was God's promise that he'll never flood the earth again, and which is also proof that he has done it before. And that's what he was getting into. And it's starting to go into the point where, like, the Tower of Babel, how he was there to influence certain different things. And this is where we at in the story right now.
Pooling knowledge and resources. For
Which I shouldn't have, but whatever. We're gonna have to deal with some commercials.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining.
They ask questions. They was like, what is your goal? What is your purpose? How do you get people to? And this is in a conversation with the devil. You can read this book as well. I get what's written by. Let me check it out real quick. But anyway, he was in the schools. I started in the churches. I'll be anywhere, everywhere. He's like, I dip in marriages. I make them bicker. I'm trying to see who this book was written by real quick. It's on Amazon. Robin Jeff. It's a really, really good book. I had did the audio book. I read the audio book. This is it right here. Conversation with the Devil. They got a lot of books of it, I guess. I don't know which one I read. Jeff Rovin. This is the one. Yeah, that was pretty dope. But yeah, he break it down on like what's his mission, how he do it, and stuff like that, and whatever. Right? We can get into that another time.
Spread again, and learned absolutely nothing from the catastrophe that had just killed every.
Damn, my bad. Right here, he talking
Hello,
about.
my name is Adam Ferrari.
And before I get into this, like, I understand like why people go this route. I'm not saying that I am, but it's controversial. We all blame the devil for this. We blame the devil for that. But at the end of the day, he right here taking accountability. A little bit, a little bit. But my thing is like my whole thing about all of this is like everybody has a side. I do choose God's side. I kind of understand where he's coming from. Also, when you create something you aren't proud of, that's the worst feeling ever. Like, we co-create with God. We create every day. We create the experiences we desire. Not every experience you create is you're going to be happy about. It's just how it is. And this is what the devil is exposing. Like, God created all of this. Creation was already somewhat in existence, but it wasn't aware of itself. Basically, what he's saying, and how God was the first one to be aware of himself when he started creating. Because basically, with like thoughts, right, that he formed into matter. I wish I could go back, but y'all got to check it out. Like he said, he made matter and all this. Like it's scientific for real. Like he didn't break it down scientifically, but the way he put it, it makes a lot of sense. He added the scientific parts to it. So for those of you who are atheists who don't believe and you just believe in science, this is somebody who's telling you like it's deeper than what the mind can imagine, what the mind can fathom. That's why they have uh, structures and they have hierarchy because everybody knows their positions. Everybody has a position. I guess God figured when He put us above the angels that we will play our positions. We will know our position because we were baby like in mind before we did our first sin, and that's when we became aware of good and evil, and we wasn't sure what to choose. But we obviously chose too much evil that God wasn't pleased with, and He washed us out.
The clock read 3:02 a.m. I'd filled 23 pages. My eyes burned from exhaustion and smoke. Had Samael been smoking? No. There
Samael is what he called himself, Samael. So Samael is this guy sitting over here to the left, and this is the guy that is in the right.
was no cigarette, but the air seemed hazier. Babel, Samael said. The tower. He refilled both our glasses. I didn't remember emptying mine. Humanity united for the first time since the flood. Working together, pooling knowledge and resources. The tower reaching heaven, not as an attack mark, not as blasphemy, as achievement, proof of what they could accomplish. And God, He came down to the city and said, Samael's voice shifted to that cold, distant tone again, speaking the same language they have begun this, then nothing planned to do will be impossible for them. Back to normal speech. So He confused their languages, made them unable to understand each other. The construction stopped. Humanity scattered, divided by communication barriers that exist to this day.
So basically, he's saying God was the reason of division, the first great division. Which, I mean, if you read the Bible, it does say these things, and it kind of makes you question, like, what kind of God do we serve? He's almighty, all loving, all graceful, all patient. This is a lot of the Old Testament. That's why people are like, oh, we go by the old, we go by the new. But at the end of the day, it all is the same thing, the same person, the same people. And it's like you can change your mind, yeah, of course, right? You can change your ways. And the more you do change, the more they become who you are. It becomes embedded in your DNA. So it's what you think, you feel, you look, you like, and all of those things, right? I said that to say this, like, if God was holy, why would He allow unholiness to rule the world? And even though He is slow to anger, slow to wrath, that doesn't mean He's exempt from it. So what the devil is saying right now, Samuel, it sounds really good, but at the end of the day, it's not what God intended for His creations to be unruly, unholy, and therefore it's unpleasing in His sight. We're not just because we live in the physical realm. We're not blocked off from God seeing us and God being available to us. That's where the great deception comes along, where people lose their faith because they don't see God every day. They don't see God's hand in their life and they don't look for it at all. Some do, some don't, but they're so distracted by the worldly things going on. Because this world is a fallen place since the beginning of time. Since the first sin ruled the world. It's continuously ruling the world rapidly. But God will have his judgment on that as well. He's slowly but surely continuously calling to clean up the mess. Natural disasters or man-made disasters, either way it go, we're being used to clean our own self up.
He took a drink. They dared to dream together, to reach.
And what's crazy about this, right? We all come together to do wickedness. Out of all the things they could have done, they decided to do that. So that just shows the mind of man isn't in the right place. Never has it been. From the first decision we had, we choose to go against God. And then the second decision we had, we choose to do something that's not uplifting God, not praising God. It's like we never had any worship in us at all. Just give me what I need and I'm going to do as I please. And that's been the attitude since the beginning of the time.
Toward the heavens, and he punished them for their ambition by ensuring never fully cooperate again.
Now, he said that they punished them for their ambition. Not all ambition is righteousness. You know, when somebody created the first bomb, that wasn't to help nobody out. It was to destroy things. Now, you can be ambitious all you want to, but not every ambition is for the global's good. Now, when somebody start planting trees, they're ambitious to grow fruit. It's for the neighborhood, the community. That's a good ambition. So don't get wrong about ambitions. You can be ambitious all day, but not all ambitions are good.
Preventing human, I said, writing. Preventing human potential.
Unity and potential is good as well, especially when you're coming together to do good things. And the potential to have a abundance, right? Abundance can work both ways. It can work for the good, it can work for the bad. You can have an abundance of problems and stress and strains and sicknesses, disease, and you can have the total opposite, abundance of good health, abundance of good finances. You know, it's just a plethora of. So a lot of people hear about abundance, they hear about manifestation, they all of a sudden attach it to something good. But it goes both ways.
Samael said us. Every war, every conflict, every ending across cultures since then, trace Abel to his decision that humanity shouldn't be able to work, because if they could, he smiled sadly. They might not need him. My hand pounded, but I kept writing. Night, dawn to dawn.
True. We do things on our own. We got the power. And I think that's what the devil came in and showed them all along. Like, you know, I was made more powerful than y'all. So y'all need to be in my mindset. Go against God and use your own powers by my assistance, right? And that's what this is. That's what it's all about. And I'm gonna show y'all exactly where I get this from. Let me go pull it up real quick.
This was real. Sodom and Gomorrah, Samael said, thing that might have been grief. 2 cities by the Dead Sea, corrupt, certainly, violent, absolutely, but home to thousands of people. Men, women, children, families. He stood again, as if he couldn't bear recounting this. Abraham negotiated for the cities, asked if he would spare them if there were 50 righteous people. Agreed. 40, yes. 30.
Would you be happy if you stayed where you are? If the answer is yes, then this is not.
Let me see if I can find this.
Fine. 20. All right. 10. Okay. Samael's the glass. So he sent angels to evacuate Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his family. Just them, no one else. These, I said. Fire and brimstone, sulfur rain. rained from the sky. The temperature reached levels that melted stone. I was there. I watched follow thousands of people, vapor incinerated, screaming as their skin melted, as their lungs filled with superheated air, as buildings collapsed in flames around them. He turned to face me. Children, Mark. Infants who'd never committed a sin. They burned alive because they had the misfortune of being born in the wrong city. And Lot's wife? She looked back, just looked back at the home she was losing, the life being destroyed, and was turned into a pillar of salt as punishment for her curiosity. Collective punishment.
Collective punishment, just like collective consciousness and social compliance. It's a real thing. Look it up. Social compliance. And what is this? It's a universal law, meaning majority rule. So just like this great battle in heaven, right? A universal law, the majority rule. God and Samael, Lucifer, whatever you want to call them, these were the two influencers of that realm. Of course, people praise God, worship God, whatever, right? But also the first creation after them was Satan. And these are the two dudes who's been around before everything else has been around, who's just been around watching, creating with each other, right? So it's only obvious that he had some influence and he had some power in that realm. And when he got to creating his disturbance, people was like, well, I'm curious. Like I told you, out of the third, 1/3 was curious, 1/3 was his true followers, and 1/3 just believed his ideology. So that was social compliance. When God was like, yeah, you finna bounce. And I guess he told them, come with me, or God was like, I want to go, or whatever. That was the time where that first universal law was put into action, the majority rule. So if it's a third, you know, usually when you're breaking down something in the thirds, it's 4 pieces. You have one, you take off one, then the third left does more than half. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I could be just, this is my point of view, how I'm thinking of it. As far as division and pies and stuff like that, drop full circle, break it down into 4 pieces, a third of them gone, you have one left. And that's a lot of people, right? But yet still, God still won the battle because he's the creator. He created everything. He even created them. So how can your creation beat you, right? And that's what the devil was saying. It was like, that's when he realized, like, well, you can have your area, do as you please, and I will just be able to down here create what I create. And that's where he kept it going. And that's what he was trying to give to us, like the power to, well, the illusion to choose, to have options. And God didn't want it for us because he knew that we're babies in mind, we're babies in Christ, and we were babies in that field of knowledge before we was introduced to that knowledge, and we chose wrong. And it's just the same why God cares about the kids and the babies so much, because it's easy to influence their minds to do wrong, especially when they have a choice and they don't know the difference between right and wrong. I just watched Almost Got Away with It. I just said the parent was out there teaching the kids to do wrong because they had a beef and they involved the kids with the beef. And potentially, not potentially, but overall, the parent killed someone and the 2 kids helped. You think they knew right from wrong at that time? No, they was doing what the authority, and that's why they have these authority figures. Like, in the realms, is hierarchy. There are levels to authority, meaning what I'm saying. You could easily influence someone down the line to become corrupt. So that's why God was trying to protect us in this way and in that way. And it was like every way that he tried to protect us, it was we were making the wrong decisions. We were messing things up overall for everybody else. And God is all knowing, all seeing. Of course, this sounds really harsh, really cruel, but at the end of the day, when you have a rotten fruit on a tree and you don't get that problem out of there, you don't pluck it, eventually it erode the whole tree, right? It'll dry it up, it won't bear any fruit. And after a while, this whole fruitful tree is now contaminated by rot, by mold, by all of the things that doesn't grow, that doesn't produce, that doesn't help this source of nourishment in the right way, right? And that's kind of like we all are. We all are seeds that's supposed to grow and bear fruit. But once we get too much of the we get into the wrong soil, the wrong watering, the wrong ideologies, right? All of these things that bombard us as to what makes us who we are, molds us to who we become. These are the things that stops us from bearing fruit, and this is what God tries to stop in the beginning, so that we won't be contaminating and we won't be barren.
I whispered. Genocide, Samael corrected. The complete destruction of two populations because they didn't meet his moral standards. No trials. No chances for reform. Just fire from heaven and death.
And of course, right, these spirits are here roaming the earth, under the earth, closer to us than we are closer to God, right? And it's just like whatever. Um, if the devil is closest to us, then he should be able to have the most influence, right? Because he could easily come and go as he pleases because he's closest. Um, and from his point of view, of course, he see it as destruction, but he don't see it as because this is not his creation. So he don't see it as trying to save your creation to be creating things that's going to be fruitful and create more fruitful things. In his mind, his point of view, he sees it as we got somebody who's unruly, an unruly ruler, and who's basically power greedy, power tripping. And that's how I see it from my point of view, from looking at his point of view, telling the story about him and God's separation. And why I said it to say this, because when people go against God, which is so easily to do with thy will, you go into these different forms of spirituality, you meet these different things. And why is this frowned upon? Because not because God is a jealous God and all this and that, it's because this is the deception that you end up getting into, and this is what happens. And I'm gonna share this lady's story with you of how she got into this stuff and why it's not good and what it's truly about when you dabbling into different sources of witchcraft, contacting the dead. Yeah, but he forgot to mention that they all got saved first. Not everybody in the house was saved. And I'm gonna run it back just to make sure I'm not tweaking. But I did hear her say she got the Catholic priest. They did it. It didn't work. Then they got saved. Then they got a Christian priest and it worked. All right, right here. Yeah, she said after we became Christians, I knew it. That's when they went to the Christian route and grabbed the Christian preacher. So yeah, they got saved first. Just make sure I don't want to skip past that part. And that's the power of belief. You know, Christian preachers and pastors or whatever to do this stuff for you if you're experiencing paranormal, negative entities. It works, but it won't work for you if you don't believe the power of Christ, if you don't believe in Jesus. So that's why it worked for them. And that's, something not to be skipped over. Mhm. She said her spirit guides will help her do close to the principalities of Satan, who close, and he to come anytime he wants to assist us. He don't even have to come personally. He got his level of hierarchy. Send up the lower soldiers out to assist these people that's doing this stuff to further advance his kingdom. Power is a uh, scary thing to play with, and that's what it was about. Like she said in her own words, I have the power to do what I wanted when I wanted. It was about self. It's about ego, and that's what this stuff is really about. You know, you get to playing with these different powers and energies and whatever, right? You open the doors, you open the portals, you're able to be spiritually contaminated by these things. It's like you're a pure cup of water, and once you start pulling in different liquids, you're not that same color, crystal clear water anymore. You're contaminated from these different things and filling yourself up with it, you know, a little bit at a time till eventually you're overfull with it. You have to be cleansed, like she was saying. It's a challenge, it's a choice to pick up your cross every day. I said I curse, it's something that I'm working on. It's not a holy way to be, to use your language. You have power in words. If you use that power to bring about lower vibrations, it's not a holy thing. It's contrary to what Christ is. He don't go around cursing people out. Man. It's just me thinking about it, being convicted of the way that I use my language and being mindful that I do these things and how easy it is to do it in the practice every day that I can to change that up and switch up the words that I use to bless and to be high vibrational. But yeah, they right on point with it. They nailing this thing home. And we're gonna get double, which is pretty awesome as well. But I think this is important as well, as far as what I was talking about and what we was learning. Yeah, right.